Hello and welcome, football fans, to the Squirtle preseason show. We are just 2.5 weeks away from week 0 football in Oklahoma, and we at Squirtle are excited to bring you another football season here in the great state. I am your host, Andy Campbell, and I am joined today by our usual panel of experts. We have the voices of Squirtle, Tom Nelson, Todd Miller, and Mark Rogers. You will be hearing these guys on the call for our games of the week throughout the Squirtle football season this year. Our guest tonight is Nick Sortus of the Daily Oklahoman. Nick covers Oklahoma football for the newspaper. And Nick, tell us a little bit about the coverage that the Daily Oklahoma will be having for Oklahoma high school football here in the next couple of weeks as we get the season started.
Yeah, so leading up to the season, we're going to have district previews. Basically, each class, each district, we're going to break it down, and we'll have coaches polls for each district and storylines and different things like that. So we'll be having that leading up to the season.
Be sure to get your subscription to the Daily Oklahoman so you can catch all of Nick's articles and news throughout the year. So we're going to do a season preview show tonight. We're going to look at each class in the state, and I'll ask our panelists to give their pick on a gold ball winner, maybe a silver ball winner, or a dark horse, and maybe a storyline or a player to watch throughout the season. We'll start at the top with 6A1. Bixby left no doubt who the best team in the state was last year in the championship game, defeating Owasso 69-6 for another gold ball for Bixby. Mark Rogers started us off 6A1.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that it's no mystery of who worked out earlier tonight between this panel. It had to be Nick. So congratulations on 6A1. Bixby, I have a lot of respect for. I think they will reload. They lost a ton of players. I think it's going to come down between Union and Bixby this year. And it's hard for me to pick against Bixby because there's such a great program, but I'm going to go with Union winning Class 6A, Division I, with Bixby second.
Nick Sortus.
I really like Bixby. Really impressed me last year with their move from 6A2 to 6A1. They did have the slip up against Jinx in week 10, but they bounced back, beat Jinx in the semis, and the championship game was one of the most lopsided championship games I've seen. So really impressed with them and what Coach Lauren Montgomery's done. So I like Bixby.
Todd Miller.
Hard to go against Bixby, but at some time I think the run has to end, and I think it may end this year just simply because of, as Mark alluded to, all the talent that they lost. They lost a running back, a quarterback, 2 wide receivers. They lost the big tight end. They're going to be there in the end, but I think it's Tulsa Union. They had the best quarterback in the class, and they've got a ton of experience back. And certainly early in the year and late in the year, I think that will be very, very beneficial. So I'm going to go with Union to win 6A1, probably in a rematch with Bixby. A storyline for me this year is Broken Arrow. Can they bounce back from a rare losing season? They went 5-7 last year, their first losing season in 16 years, and they have a tough schedule. They play all the Big Four in the eastern half of the state, so it'll be interesting to see what Broken Arrow can do as we go forward to the season. Dark horse, I like Norman North. They've got experience on defense, and that will be very, very beneficial, I think, going forward, especially early in the year. But clearly, the power, as it has been for 2 decades or longer, belongs to the eastern side of the state. I think the 2 best teams are Union and Bixby.
Tom Nelson.
Yeah, I think that 6A1 is about as, quote, wide open as I've ever seen it, but that doesn't mean that the gold ball is not going to be leaving it'll be leaving the Tulsa metro area. Bixby, Jinx, Owasso, Union, one of those 4 I think will win it, and that's not really going out on a limb. One of those 4 have won 26 of the last 27 years. They're going to always reload like they always do. I think Union, with Shaker Rising at quarterback, they've got the most upside going into the season. My sleeper team, kind of trying to find somebody off the radar screen, and I wanted to pick a team from the West. I'm going to go with Westmore. They've won just 5 games the last 2 years. Lorenzo Williams brought in some transfers. They have some talented guys who are going to get some looks to the next level. I think they're going to surprise some people, knock off a Broken Arrow or a Norman North in the district and finish in the upper half of that district. So Westmore is kind of my sleeper team.
Well, I really agree with that. I think Tom's right on the money. I'm sorry I had to let the cat out. It was disturbing the show, so I couldn't continue. But Westmore, I think, bounces back this year and has a really good year. Westmore and Norman North are the 2 best teams, I think, on the west side of the state.
That'll wrap up 6A1. We'll move on to 6A2. Stillwater won a gold ball last season with a 26-21 defeat of Choctaw. Coach Barnard left Stillwater in early June to return to Shiloh Christian in Arkansas. So Chad Kaywood will lead the Pioneers in their quest to repeat in 6A2. Tom Nelson, we'll start with you. Tell us about 6A2.
Yeah, what I think, Choctaw had their best season in years, made it all the way to the state tournament championship game a year ago. I think they get over the hump after having a great attitude in the offseason, after coming up just short last December. I think Muskogee's going to be right there as well with what they have returning. Good quarterback, Jamarian Ficklin, his favorite target, got to love the name, T.D. McGee. And it's going to be interesting to see how Stillwater defends that state title. They lost Coach Barnard in July, which not very long ago. New head coach Chad Kaywood has been in the program for 25 years or so as an offensive coordinator. They shouldn't miss a beat, but I'm going to pick them behind Choctaw and Muskogee. I think Choctaw is going to win it this year.
Todd Miller.
I agree with a lot of what Tom just said. The Yellow Jackets last year finally broke through, and they've been, or not last year, but the last couple of years, they've been a bridesmaid. I think this year they're the bride, because they had the most experience of everybody in the class coming back. And more importantly, they're hungry. They've had a great off season. They're very well coached. The program is established at Choctaw. I think Stillwater will be in contention despite the fact they have a new head coach, but it's not really new. Been there almost 3 decades, as Tom alluded to. They've got a lot of guys to replace. I think they will. And I think they'll be a much better team in the second half of the year than they are to start the year. Another team I really, really like is I like Deer Creek. I love their offense. They've got a ton of firepower. Grady Adamson is really, really good. He's a pro-style quarterback. He already has multiple Division I offers as his senior year approaches at Deer Creek. Defensively, though, that's where I have problems with the Antlers. They only have 3 starters returning. Can they solidify that side of the football to complement that offense that should be very, very explosive? And I like Muskogee as a dark horse, as Tom alluded to. The quarterback is back. Very rarely in 5A, 6A, 6A1 or 2, you have multiple year starters behind center. And Ficklin is going to be a third-year starter for the Rufflers. So I agree with what Tom said. My finals, I think I'm going to go with Choctaw, and I'm going to go with Deer Creek this year if they can solidify the defense. And I like the Yellow Jackets to finally win the gold ball.
Thanks, Tortoise.
Yeah, I like all those teams that you mentioned. I really think 6A2, it's a 4-team race. With Deer Creek, Choctaw, Muskogee, and Stillwater. I think those are by far the best 4 teams. And really between them, I think it's difficult to pick. But like you said, Muskogee really surprised a lot of people last year. They were not very good the year before, and they really surprised a lot of people. And I think Ficklin is a phenomenal quarterback. But as far as who I think will win, I think I'm a little worried about Choctaw's quarterback play. I'm not sure who their quarterback is going to be, and that's a huge loss, losing Steele Wassel. So I'm not completely sure about them, but I think Choctaw is probably the team that I would pick to win it.
Mark Rogers.
I agree with Nick that it's going to be a loss for Choctaw for Steele to leave, because I know he's kind of a polarizing kid. He's kind of cocky, but it's not going to be easy to replace him. I like Muskogee. I think Muskogee's the best team. I think the 3 teams that we've talked about, Deer Creek's got great coaching. They've got a bunch of players out. Stillwater, again, solid, and Choctaw also very good. But I think Muskogee's on the way up. I think the other teams are on the way down a little bit. And I think Travis Hill is an underrated coach. He won a bunch of games at East Central, and he's done a great job at Muskogee of getting the good players out. And I think it's going to be their year. I think they had a bunch of young guys last year and still competed very well and had a chance to win it. I think this is their year. I'm going with the Ruffers.
All right, moving on to 5A. Carl Albert with yet another gold ball last year with a 49-7 win over McAllister in the state finals. And then, guys, in the offseason, OU quarterback commit Kevin Sperry announced that he would be transferring from Rock Hill in Texas to Carl Albert for his final 2 high school seasons. Todd Miller, can anybody beat the Titans in 5A?
No, it's that easy. In fact, I don't think in any class this year there's a bigger difference between the number 1 and the number 2 and 3 and 4 teams than there is in 5A. Carl Albert was loaded even before the transfers moved in. You're talking about the Sperry kid that's committed to Oklahoma. They got a transfer on the defensive side of the football from Bishop McGinnis. they're loaded. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb, and Mark can correct me or Nick can correct me, that follow this a lot more closely than I do. This potentially could be one of the better Carl Albert teams that they've ever had. Now, here we sit in August, things can change, attrition with injuries and such, but right now I think it's Carl Albert and everybody else. If there's one team from an athletic standpoint that might be able to give them a run for the money, it's Del City. But the Eagles were not much of a challenge last year in the quarterfinals against the Titans. They shut them out. Guthrie's going to be good. Collinsville's going to be good. McAllister's going to be very good, but none are in the class of Carl Albert. I'm going to take Del City and Carl Albert in the finals if the bracket shakes out that way for 5A and it's all Titans this year.
Mark?
I think this could be the best Carl Albert team ever. Mike Dunn, the head coach, played on what would have been considered the other best team ever. Robert Jones was also on that team, and he's the head coach at Del City now. It's Del City, Carl Albert 1 and 2. Del City's got a great team, but Carl Albert is they're incredibly loaded. I mean, they've got depth. If something happened to Kevin Sperry, they've got a quarterback that could come in and play. And so I think Carl Albert wins it. Guthrie's really good. They've got a bunch of kids that have played a lot of games. I think those are the top 3 teams in the class. I think it's closer at 1 and 2, but I think that this is Carl Albert, Del City, which would be in the semifinals. I think maybe not. No, it would be in the finals. So I would go Carl Albert over Del City with Guthrie having a really good chance.
Nick Sortis.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, Carl Albert, they have 5 guys who have received an offer from OU, which I don't think any Carl Albert team has ever had that. So, and the depth, like you said, like even if Sperry does get injured, they have Cash Ferris, who's a Oklahoma State baseball commit, phenomenal pitcher and a really good athlete. I think he could step in and you know help them win games. And you got Xavier Robinson, and I mean they're loaded. So you know I think it's Carl Albert and everybody else.
Tom Nelson.
Hey, Mark, I've got a question for you. How many times has your magazine had 7 players from the same team on the preseason all-class team? That happen?
I don't think so.
Man,
I
Carl
can't.
Albert,
Yeah.
7 players on that team in the new magazine. They've won 6 of the last 7 5A gold balls, make it 7 of 8. Carl Albert is loaded. My team to watch, kind of off the radar screen, the Elgin Owls. They're winless during COVID in 2020. They won 4 games 2 years ago, 8 ball games last year. They've got 8 returning offensive and 9 returning defensive starters. And most important to me, I sell Neptune game time. They love them some game time, so I love them right back.
Hey, Carl Albert will catch Jinx this year if they win the state championship, and that would put them 1 behind Ada. So it's 17 now. Ada's got 19. Jinx got 18. So and Carl Albert's won most of those championships since the late 90s. So it's been an incredible run for the Titans.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to Class 4A. Wagner won its 6th football championship last season with a close 24-21 win over Cushing. Tom Nelson, we'll start with you. Who gets it done this season in 4A?
Wagner is going to be gunning for their 7th title in 12 years. They've got that gold ball winning experience coming back for another run. They got a couple of high major receivers, a good quarterback that can deliver the ball to them. But they hang their hat on that defense, giving up just over a touchdown a game a year ago. I like Wagner. A couple of other teams I'll be watching. Ada's got a couple of stud linebackers, Fisher Marr and George Maddox. And Cushing, with the great run a year ago, they've got some holes to fill after their 13-win season a year ago. But I think that Cushing's going to make a pretty good run, too. We'll see what happens.
Todd Miller.
Wagner last year, as Tom mentioned, did a terrific job defensively against Cushing. The Tigers manhandled the Bulldogs in the regular season. Cushing was one of the more prolific 11-man offenses we've ever seen, averaging almost 73 points a game, and they were completely shut out for the Bulldogs on defense in the state finals. My question is, how good is Wagner after they lose their defensive coordinator? I think they'll be fine. The reason, Dale Condon is there. He's established a culture and a championship mentality, and I think that carries Wagner through. I'll tell you who I do like a lot, though, and I like the Blanchard Lions. First of all, I think Jeff Craig is a tremendous football coach, and he's got a lot of experience back at the key positions. I love their quarterback in Carson Cooksey. We've seen him the last couple of years here on Squirtle. He had 26 passing touchdowns last year, almost 2,700 yards. They have a stud at linebacker. His name is Tyler Hughes. If I'm picking today, and I am, I like Wagner and Blanchard in the finals. You can't count out Tuttle. You can't count out Clinton. I like Cushing. I think Cushing, as Tom said, is going to be better as the season goes along. They may take their lumps early because of so many new players in the lineup, but I think they will be a force come playoff time. So, again, I like Wagner to repeat, but I think Blanchard could probably win it all as well.
We've had Coach Craig on this show many times during the playoffs the last few years. So best of luck to Coach Craig and his Blanchard Lions. Nick Sortis, let's go to you. Tell us about 4A.
Yeah, I like Wagner, but I think one sleeper team to keep an eye on is Poto. They're very old school type of team. They run the wing T, and play really good, solid defense. They won the title in 2019, and they have Dax Collins coming back, one of the best players in the state, committed to Tulsa. He's one of their wing backs and also plays defensive back. I think that's a team that could maybe be a sleeper, but I think, probably Wagner, it's hard to go against them. They did lose, some talent from last season. They lost Gabe Rodriguez. That was a, key player for them, but, still a lot of good players coming back. So I think it's probably Wagner, but like you said, Blanchard, I like Blanchard too. And Tuttle. So yeah, that's
Mark.
You got great coaches in this class. When you talk about Condit and Greg Warner, also Jeff Craig, and then Brad Ballard. So those guys have been at their schools for multiple years. It's hard to pick against Wagner. They pulled the upset last year in the finals, turned the tables on Cushing, who beat them 49-3, I think, in the regular season. So I like Poto a lot. They've got the most returning starters of anybody in this class, but I just can't go against Wagner. I think that Dale's done such a good job there. I mean, he's going to absolutely be one of the greatest coaches ever in the state of Oklahoma. So I'll take Wagner over Poto in the finals. Blanchard and Tuttle, one of the best rivalries going right now. By the way, the Blanchard and Tuttle staffs did play together in the Squirtle Golf Tournament at Cherokee Hills last week. I don't think they want that secret getting out, but people might be upset that they were fraternizing at the golf tournament a week ago.
Can't get that information anywhere else in the sport.
I'm just saying I can't confirm that, but I mean, maybe one of the Diesel Horse can, but I don't want to start ugly rumors like that.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Class 3A, it's been dominated the last few years by private schools. Heritage Hall prevailed last season with a 72-56 win over Metro in December. Nick Sortis, let's start with you. Can a public school challenge for a gold ball in 3A in 2023?
I don't think so, honestly. I think it's my pick is Heritage Hall. They a lot of returning talent coming back. Andy Bass, their quarterback, he's going to announce his commitment later this month. He's got could be OU, could be Kansas State, could be Syracuse. So he's narrowed it down to 3. But great quarterback, great athlete, and not just him. They have all 5 of their offensive linemen coming back, and every single one of them they're all seniors. So. Got a ton of talent returning, and Brett Bogert, I mean, he's like 101-8 at Heritage Hall or something like that, 101-7, something like that. Just a crazy amount of success. So I got Heritage Hall.
Every man a Wildcat, and maybe Andy Bass included in that. Tom Nelson, let's go to you at Class 3A.
Well, Heritage Hall just reloads every year. The defending 3A champs are going to be loaded on both sides of the ball. A game not to miss. Got to think about this one. Week 1, not 0 week. Week 1, Millwood and Heritage Hall at Heritage Hall. That'll be good. 3A is where the private public school chasm is most visible. The 3 Tulsa area privates at Cascia Hall, Lincoln Christian, Metro Christian, they're all going to be in the mix. My sleeper and the public school is Perkins Triumph. And I think they could be in a position to knock off Metro Christian when they play each other in Perkins on September 29th. A little earlier in the year, Metro Christian's got some younger kids. I think if Perkins can knock off Metro Christian, they might be able to hold on and win 3A1, and then we'll see what happens.
Todd?
Without a doubt, Heritage Hall is the best team in the class, and it's always loaded at the top spot with the private schools, as you mentioned. Andy Bass with 3 Division I Power 5 offers. By the way, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I need to get my dog because Mark's held up a cat. Tom's put a cat on his head, so I don't have a cat here at the house, thank goodness. But anyway, Andy Bass, a great player, great defense for Heritage Hall. They're very, very physical. I like Lincoln Christian as well. I think their quarterback play is outstanding with Luke Milligan. And I don't want to say sleeper because I don't think a public school can win it. To me, the best public school in Class 3A is Verdigris. And you know what? Quietly, they've been lost in the shuffle of all these public schools. What they've been able to do in the postseason. The last 5 years, they've been in the playoffs 4 times, and 3 of those seasons ended in the Final Four. So they have a really, really good program. Unfortunately, it's tough to crack the top 4 of Class 3A, but I do like Heritage Hall to repeat. It would be their second in a decade.
Mark, if everything's okay at your house, we'll ask you about Class 3A.
Well, the cat is outside, and I don't know if it's coming back in, but it's been lost a couple of times. I don't think that Brett Bogert's ever lost a district game, so he's undefeated in all the years that he's been at Heritage Hall.
They've won like 66 straight district games. Is that right?
Something like, yeah, that's right. No, 66 in a row. By the way, this is what I went to find for Tom right here. Look at this.
There you go.
I don't think Andy Bass is going to go to Kansas State, but anyway, he's an incredible athlete that ran a 10-400 at the state track meet. So it's Heritage Hall, I think. Here, Lincoln Christian can compete with them. They had they've got a pretty good rivalry going right now, but I'm going to go Heritage Hall to win Class 3A.
All right, let's move on to Class 2A. Washington and Coach Brad Beller, Squirtle School, finally got their gold ball in 2022 with a 17-14 win over Millwood. Todd Miller, we'll start with you. Give us a preview for Class 2A.
This is for a small school class, a loaded class with a lot of good teams, a lot of good athletes, really good coaches. I look at this class as one that has several different layers. It's Washington a cut above everybody else, then Millwood, then Jones, and I think you have 4 or 5 other teams that probably fall behind Jones. To me, it's Washington's to lose. I don't know how you stop this offense with 2 Power 5 Division I commits playing tight end. They have outstanding play at the quarterback spot. They're very, very good defensively. If they lose, it's likely going to be in one of the first 3 weeks where they play Vian, Sulphur, and Jones. That Jones game will be a rematch of last year's semifinal game in which Washington beat the Longhorns to advance to the championship game. Millwood is Millwood. They're not going to out-scheme you. They're going to out-athlete you. They're also going to have a lot of speed across the board. They do. They have one of the best athletes, forget about in 2A, but in the entire state of Oklahoma, and Jaden Nickens. They have an outstanding linebacker, Levine, I believe is his name, that's going to North Texas. Jones is very, very good. Last year we saw them here on Squirtle. They won 10 games with a new head coach in what was supposed to be a rebuilding year. They have a Washington problem, though. They've lost to the Warriors twice a year ago. So I think there's a lot of good teams. I still think Washington is much, much better than anybody else in Class 2A, and I'm going to go with the Warriors to repeat in 2023.
Seems like I saw recently or heard recently on Mark's show that Jaden Nickens is set to announce a commitment here in the next few weeks as well. Nick Sortis, maybe you can confirm that and talk about Class 2A.
Yeah, so that's actually on Saturday when he's going to announce. Most likely OU, but we'll see. But yeah.
Well, tell us your picks on 2A, Nick.
Oh, I think it's Washington, definitely. I think it's by far the best team in 2A. And because, I mean, he got those 2 Power 5 tight ends, but I was talking to Brad Beller the other day, and he said that Cooper Alexander's little brother, he's a freshman, Case Alexander, he thinks that he's probably that level too. So potentially 3 Power 5 tight ends at a Class 2A school. It's pretty wild to think about. But then, you got Major Cantrell, their returning quarterback coming back. He's got a PWO offer from Iowa State. So, I mean, he's a great player as well. And they play, they're very technically sound and just extremely well coached. And I don't see anybody beating Washington. So that's kind of my pick there.
Mark Rogers.
Washington is loaded. That program is incredible. They do have Division I talent, but they've got a ton of kids out and a great coaching staff. I love Millwood too. They've got a lot of players returning. That was a great championship game last year that Washington came back and won in the second half. Cameron Carter is one of my favorite players, very underrated linebacker that Millwood has. That's a junior. Nickens is a great athlete. Kind of wonder what he would be better at. He's got great basketball skill, but he's probably at his height is better suited to play football. it's Millwood, Washington. I think that's going to be a great final. But I think Washington is this is again one of the teams that, with as many players as they have coming back after being in the state championship game, runner-up 2 years in a row, winning it last year. One of the better 2A teams that's been around in a long, long time. So Millwood's great, but I think Washington wins.
Tom Nelson.
Just so I don't feel left out here, I've got a dog wanting out of the room and a cat wanting in. So after I'm done here, I'm going to have to jump up for a second. But I am not going to pick against the Warriors. They won that state championship a year ago, and they returned 16 seniors. They got big-time Power 5 talent as well. Millwood brings back plenty of talent. Jones has everybody back on the offensive side of the ball, including a really good quarterback in Clayton Creasy. My team a little further down, a little off the radar screen, is Davis. They should be the class of 2A4. They return 8 starters on each side of the ball, and we'll see what Davis can do from down there in the Arbuckle Mountains down south.
No more wishbone there. It's the flex bone now for Coach Parker.
Well, Tom, we'll give you a break. Attend to your animal duties as we've given Mark some breaks as well. We'll move on to Class A. The Fairview Yellow Jackets won their first gold ball since 1999 last season with a 32-28 win over Gore in what was a really fun championship game there in Class A. Coach Bernard brings back a number of players from that team, but Colcord looks like the team to beat in 2023. Mark Rogers, do you agree with that?
Really? Are you trying to take the pressure off of the Yellow Jackets?
Fairview always plays best as the underdog. So let's make somebody else the favorite and Fairview go win it again.
Well, Coach Shack and I had a fun time calling that game last year at Hera. I think it is 1-2. I think Fairview is 1. I think it's the Yellow Jackets over the Hornets. Jax Bernard really impressed me. Also, Colcord has got a really good quarterback there as well. But I think it's the infusion of NIL money at Fairview that is going to put them over the top. The Diesel Horse have built facilities. They've recruited players from all over Northwest Oklahoma, even to California. And Fairview is the team to beat in this class, no matter how much pressure that is put on them. I'm going with the Yellow Jackets.
I like it. Todd Miller, let's go to you.
2-horse race, Fairview and Colcord. I think the Hornets are going to really be a difficult out. I mean, they returned a lot of guys on both sides of the football. We mentioned that Wagner's defensive coordinator had left. Well, he left to go to Colcord as their head coach. And I understand there was a couple of move-ins that went with him as well. Colcord played Fairview pretty well last year, if I remember right, in the state semifinals. So I think those two are on a head-on collision again. Until somebody beats them, you got to go with the Yellow Jackets, though. They're 26-1 the last 2 years. Jax Bernard is a stud at quarterback. His dad, Robert, has done just a remarkable job in Major County. In 2019 and 2020, they had 5 wins. The last 2 years, they have a state title and 26-1 record. So I think those two are really, really good. I think a team to watch, not that's going to make a state championship run, but one that's going to be a lot better is Morrison. Last year, they were injury-riddled. They had a lot of young guys in key spots. Corey Bales and that wing T offense will get things figured out. In fact, he told me last year, he said, if you're going to get me, you better get me this year. I think they rebound nicely from a 3-7 record a year ago.
Ryan Keenum was the defensive coordinator at Wagner, and I think that's a great hire from Colcord. So that's right now. So I'll give you credit on that, Todd. But I am texting Phil Coons to tell him that you said it was a 2-team race. So I'm going to send him your number.
Nick Storrs, let's go to you. Tell us about Class A.
They'll be in contention, but I just think Fairview.
Okay, Bob.
But please,
all right.
But please do that. Can we do a 3-way call on that?
Yes.
Okay. How about we do it on the middle of the day show tomorrow?
Okay, I'm good with that.
Nick, let's go to you.
Yeah, I think you really do have to watch out for Ringling. You know, a team like Ringling, a team like Morrison, Cashin. You know, Class A is always kind of difficult to pick, I think. But I think it's Fairview and Colcord, and I think I'll probably go with Colcord.
Tom Nelson.
Yeah, I'm not going against the Jackets because we have no movie theater in Enid. I got to drive to Fairview to go to the movie, and I'd never be able to go back over there again. So I'm taking Fairview. The defending champs have a lot of talent coming back, including, as Todd said, the quarterback, Jax Bernard, best quarterback in Class A, I think. Colcord has a lot back also a new head coach, so you have that little bit of uncertainty. Ringling hasn't lost more than one game in a season since 2017. Hominy has Jackson Woods back at quarterback. I saw him play last year. If Fairview's going to win this thing, if they're going to repeat, they're going to have to earn it. And I love Class A because it is such a dogfight. I'm going way off the board. My team to watch is Mangum. They've got almost all their starters coming back off of a 7-win team a year ago. They won 5 straight to end the regular season. I'm not going to say they're going to win a state championship, but just watch Mangum and see what happens.
There is one big loss, though, for Fairview that nobody's talking about, and that's the Austin Hout kid at tight end. They bring a lot back, but that guy was very, very important to what they did on both sides of the football. He now is a member of the Bulldogs team at Southwestern.
Going to be a really fun playoffs in Class A to see what Fairview and Colcord and Ringling and some of these other teams can do this year. That wraps up 11-man football, so let's move on to Class B for some 8-man action. Laverne won its second straight championship last season after beating Sealing 36-28. Tom Nelson, you're our 8-man expert, so we'll start with you. Who wins Class B?
You can call me the 8-man expert. I'm sure as heck not going to go against Laverne. I'm not going against the 2-time defending state champs. They probably have the most dynamic player in 8-man football, Felix Teal. First time I saw him was a couple of years ago, opening game of the season at Pioneer, and he took a kickoff back about 80 yards to the house. Also in that mix, Dewar. I saw them in their first game and their last game a year ago. They were world beaters all season long until OBA took them apart in the state semis. Most of those guys are back, and they're very, very hungry. Nevin Corbin is a stud, a bruising ball carrier, averaged 13 yards a carry, scored 39 touchdowns last year for Dewar. I'm going off the board, off the reservation for my sleeper. I'm going, and it's kind of close to home for me, not too far from Enid. I don't say they're going to win a state championship, but watch the O'Keene Whippets. Tanner Allen is their new coach. He's fresh off of a 3-year run at Waynoka. They were 33-6, a couple of state finals appearances at Waynoka. He's got Whippet coaching legend Jeff Wardlaw on the sidelines, which tells me, tell you what, there were some great times announcing Whippet football back 12, 13 years ago, and they're winning those back-to-back state championships. They got a bunch of seniors, have a lot of experience. O'Keene hasn't had a winning season since 2014. That should change, and maybe a lot more.
Well, Dewar is a new Squirtle school, so welcome to the Dragons, to the Squirtle Network. We'll be looking forward to watching them this season. I know they had a rough loss to end their season to OBA. They were in the quarterfinals of Class B at Cash, if I remember correctly, last year. But look for big things out of Dewar this season. Todd Miller, let's start with you, or go to you, Class B.
I want to follow up on something that Tom said. For all of us for years and decades that covered high school football in Northwest Oklahoma, it seems almost unfathomable where O'Keene football is, but it's on its way back. 9 years since they've had their last winning record. They used to be one of the real small school powers out of Western Oklahoma. Question for me in Class B, can Shattuck rebound from a 5-4 season a year ago? They are in the super tough B1 district, which Malco Forget is in, Laverne is in, Turpin is in, Hollis is in. Laverne, the 2-time defending state champion. Sealing has Caden Manuel, who already has been offered by Emporia State. Dewar is 41-2 in their last 43. They have the most depth of anybody in 8-man football. OBA will take a little bit of a step back, but I still think they're strong. You mentioned O'Keene. It's going to be interesting to see how they play out this year. I don't think they're there yet, but I think they're a possibility to win a game or two in the playoffs under Tanner Allen. 2 years ago, I went with Malco Forgan over Laverne, and I really hated to do it in the end. I'm going to take Dewar this year over the Tigers. I guess I haven't learned my lesson yet. I just think they have the most depth and the most experience back. Laverne has the best player on the field, and I guess that accounts for a lot in 8-man football. But I'm going to go to the Squirtle newcomers, the Dewar Dragons, to win Class B. They have a Northwest Oklahoma problem, though. So does everybody else. 6 of the last 7 state champions have come from that part of the state.
Nick Sortis.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dewar for all the reasons that you just mentioned. I completely agree, and I think it's their year, so I'm gonna go with Dewar.
Hey, Todd, really quick, Todd, you're pushing it. You do not want to get the people at Laverne on your bad side. They've got the best media food of all time. I used to love to do games out at Laverne. I'd take the 2.5-hour drive just for the food out there. So
I've done football, but it's been so long since I've done football in Laverne. They were 11 man.
Todd's not going to have to worry about it after Phil Coons takes care of him tomorrow. And Tom, you're so wrong. Fairview has the best spread. Alyssa Antwine's cookie bars cannot be rivaled from anything. And I can't believe that I didn't mention that when we're talking about Class A, because that's 10-time state championship right there. You guys know a lot more about this than me. I think it's Laverne Dewar. Ceiling is really good. Caden Manuel, Gary Manuel's son, is a really, really good player. They've got a great athletic program there right now. So I think it's going to be very competitive. Walika is also going to be pretty good. But Todd's right. It's usually won by teams from Western Oklahoma, and Felix Teal is an incredible player. He's got, I think, one more year after this. He's been great for the last 2 seasons. So I'm going to go Laverne. And Alyssa Antwine's cookie bars. Undefeated. Sorry, Tom.
No problem.
Hey, did you get cookie bars during the state championship game last year, Mark, with Fairview and Gore?
Well, the cookie bars were incredible when I went to Fairview for the Hooker game, and Alyssa brought cookie bars to me at Hera for the game against Colcord. So, yes, I got them twice.
All right, well,
here's the thing. I've been doing Fairview games for 15, 20 years. I never got cookie bars. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah. What kind of cookie bars are they?
I mean, I have to have Adam explain it. It has like butterscotch and chocolate chip and then coconut. I don't know. Anyway, you'd have to see them. I'll text you guys pictures later.
Tom, I'm a Fairview alum. Adam and I and Coach Mendenhall called the state championship game, and we didn't get cookie bars either. It must be Mark. It's all Mark.
That's right.
It's the story here.
Legend of Fairview. Mark Rogers, the legend of Fairview.
All right, let's move on.
He's been there one time.
Yeah.
Todd, you know better than that.
He'll be going back. Final class C. Tipton got the big win over Winoka last year, 62-36 in the state finals to win its 8th gold ball. Tom Nelson, we'll start with you again. Tell us about Class C.
Well, what I think, I'm going to stay close to home up here, and I think it's a pretty safe bet. I still like Timberlake, 38-3 the last 3 years, won the championship 2 years ago. Brian Severin has 5 starters back, including the entire offensive line and tight ends. So some of those guys that are a little younger, the skill position guys that are a bit younger, are going to have some help learning the ropes with those big guys, talented guys up front until they can get some experience. And we're going to have the Timberlake Covington Douglas game 0 week coming up on a Thursday night here in a couple of weeks. That's been a great ball game the past few years. And so I'm looking forward to that one. The defending champs at Tipton, they're going to be there at the end, but I'm going to give Timberlake the edge because of what Tipton has had to replace. They graduated 6 starters, and a team that I'm going to keep an eye on up here in Northwest Oklahoma, the Medford Fighting Cardinals. They've not had a winning season for a couple of years, but Blake Lamley has 5 starters back. They've got a very experienced offensive line and a kid. He's a sophomore named Ethan Gonzalez. He rushed for almost 1,200 yards last year. May put him at quarterback. They want to get the ball in his hands as much as possible, but it'll be interesting to see if they can wake up the echoes in Medford in 2023.
All right, Todd Miller.
I agree with everything that guy just said. To me, I had Tipton, Winoka, Timberlake is probably the top 3. I think Medford is a very interesting team outside those 3. If I had to pick, and I do right now, I would take Timberlake because of what Tom said. 5 starters, including the offensive line, all back. Brian Severin has been there almost 40 years. One of the best guys in coaching, one of the best small school coaches at any level in the state of Oklahoma. I agree with Tom. I think Tipton will probably be there in the end. They're not as strong at the outset as they were at the end of last year, this year. But I'm going to go with the Timberlake Tigers. They've been very, very consistent, and I think they do hoist another gold ball.
Oh, by the way, happy anniversary to Coach Severin and his wife, Cindy. They celebrated their anniversary today or yesterday. It's been really recent. So congratulations, you kids.
Nick Sortis, Class C.
Yeah, I like Timberlake. I feel like that's the best team. I think it's pretty much them and everybody else. So I'm going to go with Timberlake.
Mark Rogers.
Well, it's gone way too long in this show before we have to get to the real story today, is that I was in Enid doing my show at Buffalo Wild Wings, the 15th anniversary of Ed Lynn opening that store in Enid. And I get a text that shows Tom and Todd eating right down the road. Todd and I went to high school together, and I figured that, hey, it'd been great to have lunch with Todd, and he could have easily just come to Buffalo Wild Wings, but no, didn't show up. There was also a picture of a small child in a booth behind them that no one was tending to. And so I was very concerned about that. I don't know if it's a grandson maybe that I didn't know about, or I have no idea. But anyway, you guys, that sucks. I mean, I would have loved to have had lunch with you today, but I was working and I would have met you earlier. But Taco Bandito is a great place. I mean, but I was obligated to Edlin and Buffalo Wild Wings, which is also a great place. You two guys snubbed me. Anyway, you do know Class C football.
Let me interrupt here for a minute, Mark. I would love to have lunch with you anytime you want to. I have to plead ignorant. I did not know you were in Enid until we had already ordered, and Adam apparently snapped that picture to send to you. And he said, "Whoa, Mark's in Enid too." That's the first we knew of it.
I don't buy it. Anyway, it's hard for me to pick against a guy that knows Coach Severin's anniversary. I mean, Tom, I will say this. Keon Wade came to a photo shoot, and he's about the largest man I've ever seen at Tipton. So I think it's going to be tough to beat those guys. They're really good. This should be I think it's to me, kind of a two-team race. I do appreciate Medford. They've got a shot, I think, to play some meaningful games this year in the playoffs, but I think it's Tipton and Timberlake. And I don't want to pick against Timberlake. Also, Trevor Frank from Covington Douglas came by the restaurant today, something you two guys didn't do because he wanted a couple of pigskin previews, and I was happy to hook him up. Awesome kid. And so I'm rooting for Cov Doug. I picked against them last year, and they won 50-0. And so I want to apologize to Brian Smith and everybody out there. I'll come up there for a game if it's not a Fairview game where Alyssa Antoine is making me some of the greatest cookies of all time. So if my schedule works out, I'll be there to see the Cub Dog Wildcats, maybe against Timberlake in game 1.
So you are telling me that if I would have waited 2 days, I wouldn't have had to go to OnQ and pay $13 for your magazine?
Oh, of course. I'm giving you free ones.
No, he wouldn't have. I tried to get the basketball one last year. He even took my home address and never dropped it by. No, he wouldn't.
Well, that's true because Todd can afford to pay for him. So I would take Todd's money. I wouldn't take yours, Tom. Nick, aren't you happy you joined us tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good time, man.
That's good stuff as always. Well, we will have crews broadcasting games of the week in week 0. I think that starts August 24th or August 25th. Tom, I know you're going to be out. Mark, Todd, have you guys been given assignments by the boss man, or are you still in limbo here?
We're still in limbo. Like we probably will be until about the 22nd or 23rd.
Yeah,
that's right.
Thursday night, the 24th, I'll be at Covington for Covington, Douglas, and Timberlake. So I'll be able to wish Coach Severin a belated happy anniversary in person that night.
I'm going to Lomega to do their inter-squad scrimmage on the 25th.
Get some mess for us.
That's right.
Thank you all for joining.
Don't underrate the ice cream there in that concession stand. It's also really good.
Hey, let's do a quick lightning round. You guys get one word. Okay, one word. Who wins the Big 12 this year?
TCU.
K-State.
I got to go with Texas.
Oh, Nick.
I know.
OU.
All right. One more quick lightning round. This is a food pick. Anywhere in the state of Oklahoma that you have hit this summer that you really need to talk about?
Jeez.
We can't go a Squirtle preview show without him.
I'm not very good at that because my appetite is not very big.
I don't like to eat before ball games, and everything's closed after the ball game. I tend not to do that. I
know. It was Taco Bandito today in Enid. That was our favorite this summer.
I'm going to throw out
ridiculous.
I'm going to throw this out just because back when I used to do NOC Enid games, basketball games, we stopped when we play over on the east side, and I still do it whenever I go over east. I ate this when I went to Miami a couple months ago for the 8-man All-Star game. Charlie's Chicken in Sand Springs. Can't beat those chicken chunks, mashed potatoes and gravy, corn and coleslaw.
I'm giving Todd the finger off the screen, and I'm just now giving it to Tom too. That was a terrible recommendation. Taco Tico would have been the best place in Miami to eat. I'm just going to say Butcher's Barbecue is in Wellston. It's easy on and off the highway. If you've never eaten there before, there's something wrong with you. That's the best place you can go, but you got to get there early. So that's my recommendation.
Nick?
You guys are gonna make fun of me, but I don't eat out really, so I can't.
We can tell by the way you
Nick
look.
has done meal prep. He's got chicken and rice for days. He's taking it in the car.
salmon.
Well
Salmon.
done. I'm jealous. I'm
Sam.
sorry. I wish I looked like Nick. I mean, he is well built.
And I
Well
tell you,
done.
I never thought I would say this, but we're missing Michael Swisher
Yeah.
right now on the food pick for Oklahoma, and I hope his ego doesn't go too big with that statement. But we do need Michael Swisher for a food pick. Okay, so thank you again for joining us on the Squirtle preview show. Like I said, we will have games of the week starting week 0. Pay Dirt will be back, and we'll have Squirtle.tv for 80 plus network schools this year, football and basketball. So looking forward to all of the action on Squirtle.tv this fall. We will see you at week 0 for a pick'em show with our panelists, and we will see you then.